Alright, this video goes out to my mom who thinks I can't change the oil. We're here with a 1999 Honda Accord and I'm going to change the oil. I have let it warm up for about 5-10 minutes just to get the oil nice and warm. That way it'll drain easier and less will remain in the engine compartment. From here I'm going to jack up the car with jack stands. And we'll proceed with changing the oil. And before you lift the car, you also want to use these wheel chocks. Slip them right behind the tire. Get them a good pound in there. Those will prevent the car from, if anything happens to the brake while it's lifted up, because all the weight is being supported on these tires here and kind of wants to go back. So this is prevented if something happens to the brakes. If you don't have your your parking brake on, it'll help prevent the car from rolling backwards off of the jack stands and onto the ground. Alright, so what we're going to want to do here is just find the car's support, their frame. That's where we can support all of its weight. Can't see with the camera right now, but it's right there. So I'm going to take my jack, I'm going to come in here, find the right spot to support the car on, but giving myself enough room for my jack stands when I'm going to place them on there. Room for that, so got that spot, we'll lift up. Just want to make sure you're on a good level spot, you're not off center on where you're lifting, prevent any issues or falling off. You don't have to bring the car up that high, just enough room. Enough room for you to get underneath there, comfortable. Enough room to move your head. See the frame right here? That's what you want to support on the car. I'm going to go up a little bit more. Alright, and then just slowly let it down. Make sure you're even, your jack stand is even on that square frame. So you don't have a one side on the slip off or anything like that. And obviously you'd like to be on the same height as your other jack stand. You're not off center. It's not a big deal, but all right, now we have it on jack stands. Now normally when I go underneath the car, I leave whatever side I'm going to be working on. I'll leave the jack just on the frame as well as extra support in case it's kind of a fail-safe if something would happen with one of the jack stands or whatever. You have this as backup to prevent the car from falling. So from here we have the car jacked up. We have located the oil pan. We are ready to begin draining the oil. So we're going to go ahead and take off this oil cap right here just to allow the oil to drain once the plug is pulled. Allow the air to flow in there and then oil to drain. Alright, I'm not sure if you can see it with the camera that well, but the oil pan is right in here. And here's your oil plug, which we have to take off. This is holding all the oil in. Once you take that off, it'll drain into your oil pan or oil collector or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it's a little windy today, so hopefully it doesn't blow around too much. You can put some paper towels down to keep it from going on the ground or anything like that. But yeah, here we go. Here's the tricky part. Out, and enough to where you can pull it. Ooh, yeah. It's a little windy today. It's not really good to do your oil when it's super windy. You don't want to have it get everywhere. Fortunately, with this car, the filter is kind of right up here where you can get to it. So I have to let this drain all the way before I can start messing with the filter. Alright, so I went ahead and closed my garage door. So it's too windy, it was blowing oil everywhere. If you can see our plug, it's just slow drip. I could probably put the plug back in and it would be fine, but I'm just gonna let it drip out as much as possible. But now I'm gonna go change the filter, which is right above the oil pan. It's this white thing right in here. I don't know if I can get up there with a white circle thing. I don't know if you can see it. That's what you gotta undo. That's your oil filter. What I like to do is I put a plastic bag or a big Ziploc bag around it while I'm untwisting it, so it'll catch any of the oil that's in the oil filter rather than getting all over the place and making more of a mess. It just contains the oil a little bit better. The oil filter off. I'm just going to clean up some of the oil that kind of got everywhere and just make sure it's all cleaned up before I put the new oil filter back on. And what I normally do is just take some of the old oil, dip your finger in it just to get a little bit. Just like that. And you put it around the seal right here. It'll just lubricate it so it'll seal nice on back onto the car, the engine. When you get it back on there, and you just screw it right back on. And I just go to hand strength. I'm not going to over tighten it because it will have suction onto the engine and it'll make it tighter. Just enough. Just the hand strength. Clean up any remaining oil because we are pretty much done under the car. All right, so then I just like to double check. Filter's on properly all the way. When you have this oil bolt plug, make sure that it's tight. If that's not tight, and you don't want to over tighten it as well, but you want to make sure it's tight. If that's not tight, you will have an oil leak, and eventually you will run out of oil. That is no good. All right. Alright, yeah, and just to recap here, we have oil filters on, oil plug is back in place, everything is all sealed up, good to go. Now we got to put oil back into it. This should take, I said 4.5 quarts. I just went with Valvoline, full synthetic, 10W30 for this car. We will not put all of it because this is 5 quarts, so we'll go and just put a good amount. We'll actually put the car back down onto the ground and then we'll check the oil. Actually, I'm going to correct myself here. Put some oil into it. Now we want to check, make sure nothing is leaking. So make sure the filter's on tight enough, the oil plug is on tight enough as well. If there's any leaks, tighten it up and go from there. So before I put the car down, I'm going to go back underneath it, check, make sure everything's good. We'll go again. Clean it off. Let it sit for a second. and I'm happier with that. Like I said, I don't know if the camera will catch this up, pick this up here. It's about halfway in between the two dots, and that's where we're at. Put the dipstick back. Clean up this. Put the cap back on. Make sure everything's good. Cap's back on. Oil filter's on. Oil plug is in. Once again, make sure nothing else is leaking. Nothing on the ground. So now we'll go ahead and start it up. Just make sure it's running good. See if there's any sounds, anything like that. We should be good to go.